Gentile group, in which, you know, their family before them really, they weren't Jewish. They were more secular. I don't know maybe what gods they were worshiping, but they were in that secular group. Then there's the group of them that he's trying to talk to who come from more that Jewish heritage, in which to them, you know, Jesus was one of them. And he became the prophet, but then he died. And they were still wrestling with what to do with the fact that the one who they thought was sent died. And yes, they understand that he died for them, but they're still wrestling because there were still so many things going on in the world. They could not get sense of it. It was a confusing world. Like I said, they thought, you know, we think our world's confusing. That world at that time was so confusing. It makes me feel a little better probably about my own situation, how confused I get to think what some of them must have been feeling. So Luke is addressing them with their questions that they have. He already knows that they have questions of what God was up to in the world. Because they're just like trying to make sense of God. And he's like, what is God up to? And they were wondering what it means to be church, because on one hand, in this Jewish side, it just meant, with that heritage, it meant just to follow the rules. We follow these set of 10 commandments. We follow what God has given to us in this whole, you know, we follow the rules. So they were raising some questions. And if you open up your impact folder, you didn't receive one. They're by the doors. But I have some specific sermon notes this week to take notes as I share this message and to take home for you to reflect on. So there's a question that they were asking. The first one they were asking is, what has gone wrong? What has gone wrong? The second question they're asking is, what is God up to in the world? And what does it mean to be the church in this new space? Now, if I was to think about maybe the questions we would ask today, do you think they would be similar? I think they would be. What's gone wrong? I mean, we so often hear us say that. What's gone wrong with the world today? Or, where is God? Or what does it mean to be the church? So, as he's writing this letter, the other interesting part we need to keep in mind is these people, these followers of Jesus, they weren't sure how they were meant to follow Jesus. Because they were receiving a lot of opposition. And so in this story that comes to us from Luke 10, right before this passage, is a story in which those who Jesus has been sending out received a lot of opposition. And what do we usually like to do when we face opposition? Run. Right? Run the other way. So they had faced a situation with the Samaritans in which they felt opposition because they weren't welcoming them. They went into this community and the Samaritans did not welcome them. And so we have this story about those who are following Jesus being unwelcomed by Samaritans. And then we have this passage I'm going to share with you. And then we have the bookend to that story, which is the story of the Good Samaritan. Which for many of us who might be familiar with that story, others of us might not be. It's basically a story about there's a guy on the side of the road who was hurt, and several people walked by him and wouldn't help him, a priest and some others, and so they walked by him, but then finally somebody came by and there was a good Samaritan. And that's why in our world today you hear the language Good Samaritan, it's somebody who helps others. And so we have the bookends for the story I'm going to share with you today, in which there was the bad Samaritans, right? Who didn't welcome the strangers, didn't welcome those who were following Jesus. And then we have the story of the Good Samaritan who helped somebody. So in understanding the context of the story, it's even more confusing, but it shapes how we hear this message. So let me share with you the passage we have for us today. It comes for us from Luke 10, 1 to 12. And if you have a Bible, I invite you to open it up, because today truly is a time that you really benefit from reading that, or going home today and reading the story that comes before and after this scripture. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And this is what he said. Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or a bag or sandals, and do not greet anyone on the road. When you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you. Stay there. This is a good part. Stay there eating and drinking whatever they give you. I like that. Go and eat somebody else's food. For the workers deserve wages. So basically, stay there, work, get paid. Do not move around from house to house. When you enter town and are welcome, eat what is offered to you. Heal the sick who are there and tell them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. But when you enter a town and are not welcomed, go into the streets and say, even the dust of your town we wipe from our feet as a warning to you. Yet be sure of this, the kingdom of God has come near. I tell you, it will be more bearable on that day for Sodom than for that town. Okay, so there's a lot of meat I'm trying to unpack today. So just bear with me. So we got the story about the bad Samaritan. Then we got the story about those who are being sent out, the 72, and what the specific instructions are given. And then there's the story of the Good Samaritan. Now when I first read this passage, I was baffled at what it was trying to say. And this isn't a text that I've turned to a lot and have been very familiar with until recently. But it's a text that strikes me with curiosity. I have a lot of questions as I read this text. But it does say something to us about what God is up to in the world. And it says stuff that might surprise us. As I was reading this one book, and this author shared some light on how he interpreted this passage, it opened my eyes to see it differently than I'd ever seen it before. There's a couple points that's made in this passage. The first one is radical discipleship. Now, when you hear the word radical discipleship, what comes to your mind? It's going to be challenging, off the wall, different. I mean, the word radical itself, what does that kind of capture?
Radical, man.
What?
Radical, man.
Yeah. Extreme, different. Extreme is kind of the word. But radical discipleship. I mean, so here's this text. Okay, something's going to be different. It's when he's writing this, he's saying, okay, this isn't going to be the same old, the same way we've done everything. This is going to be different. We're not just going to fix the small things. We're going to make a radical commitment. The first line of this passage speaks how Jesus sent out 72 ahead of him, 2 by 2, into all the towns and villages. And we know this comes right after the passage where they go to Samaria and they weren't welcome. So here, if you think about it, they just went out and they weren't welcomed. And now we have this passage and he's saying, you're going to go out again. Now, if you weren't welcome somewhere, are you going to want to go out anywhere else? No. What's it say about radical discipleship? This passage is speaking of how opposition is going to be the norm. That they're going to expect it. And that takes radical discipleship to commit to a way of life. Because, I mean, are you going to want to do something in which you're going to constantly be facing opposition? It's hard, right? Facing opposition day in and day out is hard. And he's saying, it's going to be the norm. Expect it. Go out anyhow. What Luke emphasizes in this story is that there will be lots of people who will want to follow Jesus and this Jesus movement as long as it fits into their settled assumptions of how things should turn out. Does that sound familiar? In our world today, and in that world, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, maybe I'll follow Jesus. Or, I don't want to follow Jesus because that goes against everything I want to do for myself. Or the settled assumptions of how they thought things would turn out. See, back then, they didn't know what to think of Jesus. All they know is what they're Jewish, some of the Jewish, their ancestors really thought Jesus was going to be with them forever on earth, not going to die for them. He was going to change things right then and there. And then he died for us, and now we have to completely change how we understand God? But a lot of times, we want to follow Jesus on our terms, right? We don't want to make a radical commitment and radical discipleship. What Luke is trying to say is that the Spirit is working now. We take the context of this story, the bad Samaritans who didn't welcome, this story, the good Samaritan who helped. He's trying to say that the Spirit of God is working even among the Gentiles. And that means that we have to be open to the strange new ways of God, and that boundaries are going to be broken, and expectations have to be reoriented. And that's radical discipleship. That what we expect, and what we want, how we want to do it, may not be the way it's going to be done. Okay, so we get this radical commitment, this radical discipleship. So now we have the second point he's making, and I like this point. This is the point that I struggle with the most. Leave the baggage behind. How many of you, when you pack a suitcase, Michael, do I overpack? I mean, how many of you have ever packed your suitcase, the gates, did this happen to you and you lost your luggage? When you went to Africa? No, you lost your passport. That was before. Okay, that was different. So how many of you have ever went somewhere and you packed your suitcase and then all of a sudden you show up and your suitcase is lost? It's not easy, right? But you had to leave that baggage behind and depend on other people. Ugh. Okay. That happens. But see, here's this thing. When I pack, I don't pack lightly. I pack in case I get stuck in traffic for 3 hours with the kids. I don't pack light. So Jesus is saying, I'm going to send the 72. I'm going to send you out and go out like lambs among wolves. Okay, that alone, I'm leaving my baggage behind, but I have to go out like lamb among wolves. I mean, you just want me to be killed? I mean, that's kind of, but there's this radical discipleship. And do not take a purse or a bag or sandals, and do not greet anyone on the road. What? Can't take my purse with me? My cell phone? My iPod? I gotta go out there empty-handed? In essence, you had to depend not on your own resources. These followers of Jesus, these 72, they were sent out in their mission field as strangers who would be in need of lots of hospitality from people in the towns and villages. And if you ever lost your luggage, you had to depend on strangers or the people you were with to take care of you. Luke, in this text, is suggesting that the mission of God moves forward in the world when disciples of Jesus choose to become like strangers in the towns and villages we sent to, dependent upon the host. That's what I'm trying to tell us for today. We've got to be like the strangers. In our world today, this may be hard for us to understand because in our world today, you're supposed to take care of yourself. You're supposed to have everything you need. And back then, it was a little easier because people took care of one another. This was common in first century practice that you knew to take care of this person because eventually you might be that person in need. But I want us as Christians to think like that. To leave the baggage behind may mean for us today to not always do church as we've done church. If you were to receive a decree from Jesus today to go and leave everything behind, what would you do? What would you take with you that would get in the way? Just ask yourself that. Jesus would come to you today and say, leave everything behind. What would you do? And what would you just hide in the pocket? Or hide somewhere, thinking that you could take it anyhow, but it would get in the way. Now you may be taking that as one of the physical things we might take, but there's some emotional things we might take with us as well. Sometimes we take lots of baggage, right? Does anybody have any baggage they're carrying around? We all have a little bit of baggage. And we're going to take that in the mission field. We ought to go out not as a stranger, but as the one we think knows it all. Anyway, I do that sometimes. I think I know it all. Yeah. We ought to go to the neighborhoods thinking we as a church have all the answers for what people need. We go out with pre-packed bags. Now, I'm not saying that it's against what we're going to be doing in a few weeks, but we go out, well, the people in this community must need this. And we take it to them, and that's not what they really need. You see, all of this baggage We go into the streets of Lakewood assuming we know who the people are and what they need. And I'm not telling us, we need to figure out what they do need and who they are. Trust me, I'm the #1 guilty person here. Over spring break, I was constantly looking around in our community. What do the people here need? And I had a revelation as I was reading these books that I don't even know if I know my neighbors. Do I listen to my neighbors? Do I listen to the people I hear? Do I know their names? Do I know what they need? Do I listen? I'm going to say it again. We need to go out in the streets of Lakewood and strip ourselves of the baggage. Because, and you can write this down in the bulletin, when we go out with baggage, weighing us down, we lose 2 things. And these are the 2 things we lose. We lose our ability to see people and their needs as they really are. So we carry that baggage of all our assumptions. We lose the ability to see people and their needs as they really are. Second thing is we lose an openness to see what God is doing. We lose an openness to see what God is doing. We need to be open to the Spirit. We cannot ask the question, what is God up to in our neighborhoods and communities, when we think we already know. And I think too often as a church, we think we already know. We need to leave our baggage behind and be willing to become like the stranger to understand what God is up to. So you all need to be strangers. Because knowing what God is up to has a lot more with being a stranger and receiving hospitality than being in control of the resources and thinking you have all the answers. So I'm going to summarize this and make a few final points. If we take what we have learned from Luke, how can we discern what God is up to in our world? Here's what we need to do. We need to be willing first to enter knowing this is a commitment. Without baggage, we need to go to the ambiguous, vulnerable spaces of mission that follow the counters of God's engagement in the world. And we need to remember that the 70 people that Jesus sent out in this passage were ordinary. Look around the room. You all we're just ordinary, everyday people. Some of you are extraordinary, right? We all are in our own way. But we're ordinary people. The people that went out, they were nameless. It never mentions any of those by name who went out. They were people looking for recognition, to stand on the stage or get their picture in the newspaper. These are ordinary people, like all of us. And it's through ordinary people like all of us where God's boundary-breaking future will emerge. The local and ordinary people, all of us, are key to how we can live out God's mission in the world. So we need to enter the ordinary, everyday life of our neighborhoods and communities. We need to go out without our baggage, in a radical commitment, and we need to enter the homes and receive gracious hospitality. Now you can interpret this how we are. We need to stay with the people and not too quick to run onto the next place. Because what do we do in our world today when we start to engage with people? We usually rush it because we have somewhere else we have to be. We have another place. This week, I think I was preaching to myself. On Friday, I had the opportunity, I needed to go visit somebody in the hospital. And I was running late from a meeting, and I kept thinking of my sermon I needed to write. And I'm like, okay, it's 3 o'clock, God. I got to get to the hospital. I got to visit this person. I only have so much time until 5 o'clock. And then I sat down and started visiting with this person. And realized I took my own baggage there. I took my baggage into that room with that person. And eventually, as I was sitting there and I looked at my watch at one point, I'm like, it doesn't matter. That sermon will come. I will make another time and place, so I won't watch a movie with my husband. That sermon will get done. Right now, this is where God has called me to be. And as I sat there and this person opened up their heart to me, I learned more about that person in that hour and a half or so than I would have in any other way. God said, put that baggage aside, Lord. Go where that person is, and don't rush out the door. run mission. How many people can I visit this week? You know, we need to listen. For us today, it means being the church that we actually need to learn how to listen to people without making people an object to our ends. We need to be genuine with people. And we need to let go of the control in the conversation. And you know, if any of you ever had conversations with me, you know I like to control. Being honest. I'm speaking to myself. We need to let go of the control and let God take control of that conversation. Let God use those who are sitting there to converse. And we need to work among the people. Now you all are lucky because I don't work among the people. I work in the church. You all are the perfect ordinary people because you work among the people. And you get to eat with the people, maybe at the lunchroom table, I don't know, wherever you work, maybe the cafeteria. And you get to sometimes sit with the people, actually sharing a meal and taking time to break bread and join others in conversation. We need to lay aside our anxious need to always say the right words at the right place to get the right decisions. And we just enter the world and sit beside the people where we can listen and hear their stories and enter into dialogue and perhaps catch wind of what the Spirit of God is trying to do in our lives. You see, church is not the building. We have a great building, but the church is not the building. Church is where the people are. So, your decree this week is to go where the people are, leaving our baggage behind. And that's going to be our mission as a church. And in the next few weeks, we're going to unpack this more and more as we talk about how we can change. Gracious Lord, be gracious unto us because we do think we know it all. And sometimes, Lord, we think we know what everyone needs. So, Lord, challenge us to listen. Challenge us to be Luke 10 disciples who go out into the field. To go out where the people are and to leave our baggage behind and make that commitment to you, Lord, to change the world. Lord, be with us and send us out. Amen. As you go out, take a chance and look at all the photos around, thanks to Paige Boyer. We've covered our worship space. Since we have doors, we're in a building, we needed to see our community. And so around this space for the next 6 weeks, you'll see pictures of Lakeland around. If you have any you want to bring in, feel free to bring them. So let us go out with Jesus' desires. See what he sees. Let us go out carrying that love he has for humanity with us. Amen.
Amen. Let's go out singing.